Listen, when you've been in the business of galactic peacekeeping for 3 centuries, you think you've seen everything. Wars that lasted millennia, planets turned to glass, species extinct before breakfast. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for what happened when we assigned that human girl to guard duty. Her name was Kira Mills. Fresh out of the academy, barely 19 standard cycles old, with that peculiar human habit of grinning at inappropriate moments. Command thought they were being clever, you see. Stick the new recruit on the most boring assignment in the fleet. Guard the artifact wing. Watch over a bunch of rusted relics from dead civilizations. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, sweet stellar winds, where do I even begin? The Hegemony Cruiser Vindication was humanity's first joint assignment vessel. 47 species working together in perfect harmony. Well, mostly perfect. There was that incident with the Korthani refusing to share elevator space with the Jeltari, but that's bureaucracy for you. The ship housed our most precious archaeological finds, weapons so ancient that half the galaxy had forgotten what they were originally designed to kill. Mills walked into the artifact wing on her first day, combat boots clanking against the polished floors, looking around like a tourist at a museum. The supervising officer, a rather pompous Vegan named Thorx Prime, handed her a plasma rifle and pointed to a chair. "Sit there," Thorx Prime wheezed through his breathing apparatus. "Don't touch anything. Don't look at anything too closely. Don't even think about anything too hard. Some of these artifacts respond to neural activity." Mills nodded seriously, which should have been our first warning sign. Humans never nod seriously unless they're planning something spectacularly stupid. For the first week, everything went smoothly. Mills sat in her chair, read her datapad, occasionally walked the perimeter. The other guards, a collection of various species who'd drawn the short straw for assignment duties, barely acknowledged her presence. After all, what could one human cadet do in a room full of dead alien technology? The answer, as it turned out, was quite a lot. It started with the humming. Day 8 of her assignment, Mills began humming while she worked. Not loudly, mind you. Just a soft, melodic sound that seemed to resonate through the wing. The Crystallian guard, Bex Null, complained that the vibrations were interfering with his meditation cycles. The Thoraxian, Clicks, mentioned that his carapace was tingling in a rather pleasant way. Nobody connected the humming to the fact that several of the dormant artifacts had begun emitting faint energy signatures. Just one thing before we begin. YouTube tells me 94.3% of you watching aren't subscribed. Subscribing is free. It really supports the channel, and you'll get more amazing HFY sci-fi stories delivered straight to you. Don't miss out. Day 12 brought the first real incident. Mills was doing her routine patrol when she stopped in front of display case 847. Inside lay what our xenoarchaeologists had catalogued as a ritual ornament from the fallen Mokari Empire. It looked like a cross between a crystalline flower and a very angry sea urchin, about the size of a human fist, covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Mills stared at it for a long moment, then pulled out her personal toolkit. Now, every species in the galaxy has regulations about personal toolkits. Most contain standard items: emergency rations, communication devices, medical supplies. Humans, being humans, apparently interpret toolkit somewhat more liberally. Mills's kit contained 17 different types of screwdrivers, something called duct tape, several chemical compounds that were technically illegal in 42 star systems, and a device she cheerfully referred to as a multimeter. She began scanning the display case. "Hey, Bex Newell called from across the room. "What are you doing over there?" "Just checking the containment field integrity," Mills replied, not looking up from her readings. "Seems like there might be some energy leakage." This was technically within her duties. Security personnel were responsible for ensuring containment protocols remained intact. What wasn't within her duties was what she did next. Mills pulled out a small device, attached several wire leads to different points on the display case, and began typing rapidly on a handheld computer. The Mokari artifact began to glow. "Mills!" Clicks chittered, his mandibles clicking with alarm. "What is that thing doing?" "Oh, this?" Mills glanced up with that infamous human grin. "I think it's trying to talk." Before anyone could stop her, she'd interfaced her computer directly with the display case's monitoring systems. The artifact went from a gentle glow to pulsing with rhythmic light patterns. Then it began projecting holographic symbols into the air above the case. Mathematical equations, star charts, what looked suspiciously like weapons schematics. "Mills," Bex Newell said slowly, his crystalline form shifting colors from blue to deep red, which in crystalline body language roughly translates to, "I'm about to panic." "I don't think that's a ritual ornament." Mills tilted her head, studying the projections with the sort of intense focus that humans reserve for things they probably shouldn't be playing with. "You know what? I don't think so either. These energy patterns, they're definitely artificial. And look at this resonance frequency. It's designed to interface with other systems." She was already moving toward display case 851. Inside that case sat what had been catalogued as a decorative cylinder, purpose unknown. About 3 feet long, made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light, covered in what everyone had assumed were artistic engravings. It had been recovered from a dead world in the outer rim, along with several other art pieces that were now distributed throughout various display cases in the wing. Mills began connecting more leads to this second display case. The moment her scanner touched the containment field, the cylinder began to vibrate. "Mills?" Clicks was backing away from the displays now. "Maybe we should call for a supervisor." "In a minute," Mills muttered, completely absorbed in her work. "I'm getting some really interesting readings here. Look at this power signature, and the way it's responding to the other artifact's transmissions." The cylinder's vibrations were getting stronger. The engravings along its surface had begun to emit a faint purple glow, and if you squinted just right, you could see that they weren't random artistic patterns at all. They were circuit diagrams, incredibly complex circuit diagrams for technology that was clearly far more advanced than anything currently in service with the hegemony fleet. "Mills!" This time it was Bex Newell, his voice taking on the harmonic overtones that crystallians use when they're genuinely terrified. "The other artifacts are responding." He was right. Throughout the wing, dozens of display cases were beginning to show activity. Faint glows, subtle vibrations, holographic projections flickering to life. It was as if Mills had found the master key to an entire network of interconnected technology. "This is incredible," Mills breathed, her fingers flying over her computer interface. "They're all connected. Look at this. It's not just random alien artifacts. It's a weapons system. A really, really big weapons system." The cylinder in display case 851 was now glowing brightly enough to read by. The purple light had shifted to a more ominous red, and the vibrations had become a steady, rhythmic pulse that seemed to sync with everyone's heartbeat, or whatever passed for a heartbeat in their respective species. "What kind of weapons system?" Clicks asked, though his tone suggested he really didn't want to know the answer. Mills consulted her readings, frowning slightly. "Well, based on the power output calculations and the harmonic resonance patterns, I'd say it's designed to destabilize planetary cores. Silence fell over the wing like a heavy blanket. "Excuse me," Bexnull said carefully. "Did you just say planetary cores?" "Oh, yes," Mills nodded enthusiastically, apparently oblivious to the growing alarm of her colleagues. "Definitely planetary cores. See, the way it works is you use these smaller artifacts as targeting and calibration devices. They scan for specific geological resonance frequencies, then transmit that data to the main weapon. Which would be?" She paused, looking around the wing with new understanding. "Well, which would probably be that big black cylinder. The one that's currently charging up enough energy to crack a moon in half." The cylinder was indeed charging. The red glow had intensified to the point where it was casting shadows around the room, and the harmonic pulse had shifted into frequencies that made everyone's teeth ache. Worse, other artifacts throughout the wing were beginning to levitate inside their display cases, spinning slowly as they added their own energy signatures to whatever network Mills had accidentally activated. "Turn it off," Clicks chittered urgently. "Turn it off right now." "I'm trying," Mills replied, frantically typing commands into her computer. "But it's not responding to shutdown protocols. I think once you activate the targeting sequence, you have to either complete the firing cycle or—" She trailed off, staring at her screen with an expression that managed to combine fascination with dawning horror. "Or what?" Bexnull demanded. "Or it defaults to the last target in its memory banks." Mills looked up from her computer, and for the first time since anyone had known her, she wasn't grinning. And according to this, the last target it was programmed for was the hegemony capital world. Now, you have to understand the significance of this. The hegemony capital world, Nexus Prime, was home to 17 billion beings from 49 different species. It housed the central government, the Supreme Military Command, the Galactic Archives, and most importantly, from a practical standpoint, the planet where everyone's paychecks were processed. If an ancient planet-killer weapon fired on Nexus Prime, it wouldn't just be genocide on an unprecedented scale. It would be the end of civilization as everyone knew it. Plus, nobody would get paid. "How long until it fires?" Clicks asked. Mills checked her readings. "Based on the current charging rate, about 43 minutes. Can you contact the bridge? Communications are jammed. All this energy is interfering with everything electronic on the ship." Bexnull's crystalline form had shifted to a deep purple color that indicated either extreme fear or severe indigestion. "What about evacuating the wing?" The containment doors sealed automatically when the artifacts activated. Safety protocol. "We're locked in until the energy levels return to normal." "Which will be when?" Mills gave them that apologetic smile that humans use when they're about to deliver really bad news. "Well, either when the weapon fires and expends all its energy, or when someone figures out how to properly shut it down. And you don't know how to shut it down. Not yet." The situation was rapidly deteriorating from mildly concerning to career-ending catastrophe. The cylinder was now bright enough that looking directly at it would probably cause retinal damage, and the harmonic resonance was strong enough to rattle the display cases. Several of the smaller artifacts had begun to spin faster, their own energy contributions creating a feedback loop that was accelerating the charging process. "Wait," Mills said suddenly, her expression brightening. "I have an idea." "Please tell me it doesn't involve touching more things," Bexnull pleaded. "Oh, it definitely involves touching more things, but hear me out." Mills was already moving toward another section of the wing, her scanner in hand. "See, the problem is that I activated the network without understanding the complete system architecture. But if I can find the command node, the central control unit, I might be able to send a shutdown command that the system will actually accept. She stopped in front of display case 863. Inside was what had been catalogued as a ceremonial helmet, species unknown. It was a sleek, metallic dome about the size of a human head, covered in the same type of circuit pattern engravings as the cylinder. More importantly, it was the only artifact in the wing that wasn't currently glowing or vibrating or spinning ominously. "That's the command node," Clix asked. "Well, it's either a command node or a really fancy hat. Only one way to find out." Before anyone could protest, Mills had opened the display case and lifted out the helmet. The moment her fingers touched the metal, everything changed. The helmet activated instantly, projecting a holographic interface around Mills that was clearly designed for a different species. Symbols and readouts appeared in the air, rotating slowly as if waiting for input. The other artifacts in the wing immediately stopped their chaotic energy emissions and locked into a synchronized pattern, all focused on the helmet Mills was now holding. "Mills," Bexnull said quietly, "I think you should put that down." "Can't," Mills replied, her voice oddly distant. "It's interfacing directly with my nervous system. I can feel the entire network. It's incredible. The scope of this system. It's not just a planet killer. It's a stellar engineering tool. You could move stars with this technology." "Mills, you're scaring us." "What? Oh, right. Sorry." Mills blinked, seeming to refocus on her surroundings. "The helmet is designed for direct neural interface. It's reading my brain patterns and translating them into system commands. Good news is, I think I can shut down the weapon. And the bad news..." Mills was quiet for a long moment, studying the holographic displays that only she could fully interpret. "The bad news is that this isn't just one weapon. It's part of a network that spans the entire galaxy. There are artifacts like these on hundreds of worlds, in museums and private collections and archaeological sites. Someone scattered the components deliberately, probably hoping they'd never be assembled again." "But you've assembled them." "Not all of them. Just the ones on this ship. But even that's enough to..." She paused, running calculations on the holographic interface. "Enough to what, Mills?" Mills looked up from the display, and there was something in her expression that made everyone take a step back. "Enough to give humanity a very big stick," she said quietly. "The question is whether we're responsible enough to use it wisely." The weapon system pulsed once more, then began to power down. The red glow from the cylinder faded to purple, then to blue, then disappeared entirely. The other artifacts settled back into their display cases, once again looking like nothing more than curious relics from dead civilizations. "There," Mills said, carefully placing the helmet back in its case. "Crisis averted. The system is in standby mode now. It won't fire without a direct command from an authorized user." "Authorized by whom?" Bexnull asked. Mills grinned, and it was not a reassuring expression. "Well, funny thing about that. According to the system logs, the last authorized users were the Mokari Empire. They went extinct about 50,000 years ago. So, technically, the system doesn't have any authorized users." Technically. But the neural interface protocol has some interesting flexibility built into it. It's designed to adapt to new user species, establish new authorization codes, create new command hierarchies. Clix's mandibles were clicking rapidly, which was never a good sign. "Mills, please tell me you didn't authorize yourself to control a galaxy-spanning weapons network." Mills was quiet for a moment, looking around the wing at all the innocent-looking artifacts that she now knew were components in the most powerful weapon system ever built. "I didn't authorize myself," she said finally. But the system did ask if I wanted to register as the new primary administrator. And what did you tell it? Mills smiled that particular human smile that usually preceded something either brilliant or catastrophic, and quite often both. I told it I'd think about it. The next morning brought panic in 17 different languages. Word had gotten out, as word always does when you accidentally activate weapons of mass extinction in the middle of a joint species military vessel. By the time I made it to the artifact wing, there were representatives from every major government in the hegemony crowding the corridors, all demanding answers, explanations, and, preferably, someone to blame who wasn't them. Mills sat in the center of it all, still wearing her rumpled cadet uniform, calmly eating breakfast, while surrounded by some of the most powerful beings in known space. She'd apparently set up a small camp chair next to display case 863, the one containing the helmet that had started this whole mess. "Cadet Mills," I said, pushing through the crowd of agitated aliens. "Status report." "Good morning, Commander Yilthka," she replied cheerfully, not bothering to stand at attention. "The weapon system is currently in standby mode. All planetary targeting systems are offline. No immediate threat to galactic civilization." "No immediate threat?" squawked Ambassador Vex Null, his feathers ruffling with indignation. "You've discovered a device capable of destroying stars, and you call that no immediate threat?" Mills shrugged. "Well, it's been sitting in museums for 50,000 years without destroying anything. I figure we've got time to talk about it." "Talk about it?" This came from General Thorak Prime, the Klingon representative whose species had never met a problem they couldn't solve with aggressive posturing. "There's nothing to discuss. That weapon must be destroyed immediately." "Can't do that," Mills said, taking another bite of her ration bar. "The system has built-in preservation protocols. Try to destroy one component, and the others activate automatically to protect themselves. Try to destroy them all at once, and they default to their last programmed target sequence. Which is the hegemony capital world. Still, you could have heard a pin drop in the vacuum of space." Senator Klixva, representing the Thoraxian Assembly, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "So we can't destroy it, and we can't leave it uncontrolled. What exactly are you proposing, Cadet?" Mills finished her ration bar and stood up, brushing crumbs off her uniform. "I'm proposing we use it responsibly." "Use it?" General Thorak Prime's ridged forehead was turning an alarming shade of purple. "Use a weapon of galactic annihilation?" "Not as a weapon," Mills said patiently. "As a tool. See, I've been studying the system architecture all night. This isn't just a planet killer. The Mockery designed it as a stellar engineering platform. You can move asteroids, redirect comets, adjust planetary orbits, even relocate small moons." She gestured to the helmet, which was now projecting a three-dimensional star map showing various systems throughout the galaxy. "Look at this. The Harrick system has been dealing with an asteroid field that's been disrupting their trade routes for centuries. We could clear that in a week. The Zelani homeworld is slowly drifting out of its habitable zone due to gravitational perturbations from a rogue planet. We could fix that in a month." Ambassador Vex Null's feathers were still ruffled, but his tone was becoming more curious than panicked. "And you can control all of this?" "Theoretically, yes. The neural interface is designed to work with any sufficiently complex nervous system. It adapts to the user's thought patterns and translates them into system commands." "Theoretically?" Mills grinned. "Well, there's only one way to find out for sure." Before anyone could stop her, she'd picked up the helmet and placed it on her head. The reaction was immediate. Every artifact in the wing activated simultaneously. but this time their energy patterns were controlled, purposeful. The helmet projected a massive holographic interface that filled half the room, showing star charts, energy readings, system diagnostics, and what looked like a real-time map of every Mokari weapon component in the galaxy. "Mills," I said carefully, "what are you seeing?" "Everything," she breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. "The entire network, artifacts in the Centauri Archaeological Museum, components in the Royal Altarian Collection, pieces scattered across 100 worlds, all dormant, all waiting." Waiting for what? For someone to wake them up. Mills paused, studying a particular section of the display. "Commander, did you know there's a piece of this system in the Hegemony Council chambers? Right there on display behind the speaker's podium?" Several of the government representatives suddenly looked very uncomfortable. "It's been there for centuries," Senator Klixva admitted reluctantly. "A gift from the archaeological expedition that discovered the Mokari homeworld. We were told it was a ceremonial staff." Mills laughed, and it wasn't entirely a pleasant sound. "It's a control relay. Anyone with proper authorization could have taken control of the hegemony government with a thought. Lucky for you, nobody knew what it was. And now you do. Now I do." Mills removed the helmet, and the holographic displays faded. Which brings us to the real question. What do we do about it? General Thorak Prime stepped forward, his hand resting on his weapon. "We secure the technology. Place it under proper military control." "Whose military?" Mills asked innocently. That single question sparked what I can only describe as the most politely vicious argument in galactic history. Every species represented wanted control of the Mokari system. The Klingons claimed right of conquest, since they'd discovered the first artifacts. The Thoraxians argued for technological sovereignty, since their scientists had been studying the components for decades. The Crystallians demanded administrative control based on their superior computational abilities. Through it all, Mills sat quietly, occasionally making notes on her datapad. "You know," she said finally, interrupting a particularly heated exchange between the Altarian ambassador and a representative from the Outer Rim Collective, "there's another option." "Which is?" I asked. "We don't give it to any government." The arguing stopped instantly. "Explain," Senator Klixva demanded. Mills stood up, suddenly looking far older than her 19 years. "The Mokari scattered this system for a reason. They didn't want any single species or government to control it. So instead of fighting over who gets to be the next galactic superpower, why don't we create something new?" She activated her personal holographic projector, displaying what looked like an organizational chart. A joint council. Representatives from every major species, plus some of the minor ones who never get a voice in galactic affairs. No single group gets majority control, but everyone has input on how the system is used. "And who administers this council?" Ambassador Vex Newell asked suspiciously. "Someone impartial. Someone who doesn't represent any existing government or faction." Mills smiled. "Someone like a human cadet who accidentally activated the whole thing in the first place." The silence that followed was deafening. "You want to put a 19-year-old in charge of the most powerful weapon in galactic history?" General Thorak Prime's voice was barely controlled. "Not in charge," Mills corrected. "Acting as administrator." "There's a difference. I don't make decisions about how to use the system. The Council does. I just implement those decisions and make sure nobody tries to use the system for personal gain." "And what's to stop you from taking control yourself?" Mills considered this seriously. "Nothing, really. The neural interface gives me complete access to the system. If I wanted to become Galactic Empress Mills I, I probably could. But you won't? Nah, too much paperwork. I stared at her. That's your entire argument against becoming the most powerful being in galactic history? Paperwork? Well, that and the fact that absolute power corrupts absolutely. Plus, I'm 19. I can barely remember to do my laundry, let alone manage a galaxy-spanning weapons network. Mills paused, looking around at the assembled representatives. But here's the thing. This system is already active. The components are already networked. Pretending they don't exist won't make them go away. And eventually, someone else is going to figure out how to use them. Maybe someone with less concern for paperwork and more interest in, say, galactic domination. She had a point. A terrifying, completely valid point. So what exactly are you proposing? I asked. Simple. We formalize it. Create the Mokari Heritage Council with representatives from every species. Give them oversight authority over the weapon system's use for stellar engineering projects. And set up proper safeguards to prevent anyone from using it for military purposes. Including you. Mills nodded to the helmet. The system has built-in ethical protocols. The Mokari were apparently big on not letting their technology be used for genocide. I can activate those protocols, lock out all offensive capabilities permanently. And you'd be willing to do that? Of course. Like I said, I'm not interested in becoming a galactic dictator, but someone needs to make sure this technology is used responsibly. And frankly, I'm the only one here who actually knows how it works. The debate that followed lasted 3 days. Representatives flew in from across the galaxy, experts were consulted, lawyers argued about the legal precedents for creating new interstellar organizations, and at least 6 different species threatened to withdraw from the hegemony entirely if their demands weren't met. Through it all, Mills continued her routine guard duty, sitting next to the artifacts and occasionally putting on the helmet to run diagnostics or demonstrate capabilities. She cleared that asteroid field from the Harix system as a proof of concept, relocated a rogue comet that had been threatening a mining colony, and at one point used the system to nudge a dead moon back into stable orbit around its planet. Stellar engineering, she explained to a group of fascinated scientists. The Mokari were gardeners on a galactic scale. They used this system to maintain the stability of hundreds of star systems, keeping trade routes clear and habitable, worlds in proper orbits. And the weapon capabilities? Asked Dr. Rex knew, the hegemony's chief xenoarchaeologist. Emergency protocols only. If a star was going to go nova and threaten inhabited systems, they could destabilize it in a controlled manner, redirect the energy safely. If a rogue planet was on a collision course with a populated world, they could alter its trajectory, or, in extreme cases, break it apart. But it could be used offensively? Mills was quiet for a moment. Yes, but the ethical constraints built into the system make that extremely difficult. The Mokari programmed it to refuse targeting inhabited worlds, or systems with sentient life, or even ecologically important planets. You'd have to deliberately override multiple safety systems to use it as a weapon of war. Could someone do that? Someone with the right knowledge and a complete lack of moral restraint? Probably. Which is why we need proper oversight. In the end, practicality won out over politics. The Mokari Heritage Council was established with representatives from 43 species, housed in a new facility constructed specifically for managing the artifact network. Mills was appointed as chief administrator, with the understanding that she would serve until a permanent governing structure could be established. The system's offensive capabilities were locked out permanently, just as she'd promised. The weapon that could have cracked planets became a tool for stellar maintenance and asteroid management. And Mills? She got a promotion, a much larger office, and a job that was definitely not boring. 6 months later, I visited the Heritage Council facility to check on how things were progressing. Mills was in her office, surrounded by holographic displays showing various engineering projects throughout the galaxy. She looked up when I entered, grinning that same infectious smile. "Commander." Perfect timing. We just finished relocating the Keltari system's second moon. Apparently, it had been slowly decaying out of orbit for the past 1,000 years. The Kelthari are throwing a month-long celebration. "And how are you adjusting to your new responsibilities?" Mills leaned back in her chair, gesturing at the displays around her. "It's incredible. We're not just maintaining existing systems anymore. We're actively improving them. The frontier colonies are getting proper asteroid shields. The outer rim trade routes are finally stable. We've prevented 3 potential stellar disasters and relocated 17 hazardous space objects. No regrets about not taking direct control? None at all. Turns out, saving civilizations is way more satisfying than ruling them." She paused, looking thoughtful. "Plus, the Council keeps me busy enough that I don't have time to develop delusions of grandeur. And the other species? How are they adjusting to having a human in charge of galactic stellar engineering?" Mills laughed. "Well, the Thoraxians still think I'm too young for the job. The Klingons think I'm not aggressive enough. And the Crystallians keep trying to optimize my decision-making processes." She shrugged. "But nobody's tried to overthrow the Council yet, so I call that a win." As I left the facility that day, I reflected on the strange turns that life can take. A routine guard assignment had become the foundation for a new era of interstellar cooperation. A bored cadet had become one of the most important figures in galactic history, and a weapon designed for destruction had become a tool for creation and preservation. Sometimes, I suppose, the galaxy needs someone young enough to ask, "Why not?" instead of "Why?" Someone willing to tinker with ancient alien technology just to see what happens. Someone human enough to turn a planet killer into a planetary gardening tool. Just goes to show, you can never tell what a human will do when left alone with sufficiently advanced technology, even if you probably should have seen it coming.